This is Bless Radio. It's Tuesday evening, just after 6 o'clock, and this is Saad here in the studio, and this is the Spiritual Discussion Program. And I'm just going to ask Gregory to join us. So let's give him a call. Welcome, Gregory. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Yes, of course. Hello.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Okay, good. We just started. I'm again, as usual, in London in the studio here. The weather here is very bright and clear skies. I will call it, warm to hot, I will call it. How is it where you are and where are you?
In Brussels, it's just mild, not that hot, but very bright.
Mild and bright. Okay, good. Dear listeners, this is the Spiritual Discussion Program, and the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And as always, we have a new topic every week. The topic for tonight is self-respect. And you can join us in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 004479 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. I'm going to start with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abdrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for discussion tonight is self-respect. You can join in with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I did a bit of, well, I won't say a lot of research, but I looked up the definition for the topic for discussion tonight, self-respect. And this is what I found. A sense of one's own dignity or worth. And then it also gave an example in that dictionary, like a phrase you can say, it was beneath his dignity to cheat. That's an example of self-respect. And then some synonyms, can't say it right, synonyms for self-respect. I found these: pride, dignity, self-esteem, morale, and there's a French word which is amour propre, which means faith in yourself. And then another example of the word being used, of self-respect being used, in the dictionary I found this one: any man with self-respect should have resigned. Obviously, if you don't have the context, it doesn't really make sense, but we hear these words quite often, so I think it does make sense for most of us. So, Gregory, that word self-respect, I mean, it's really, how can I say, it's such a wide-ranging thing, you know. Pride, like I said, I looked up these, found these synonyms, pride, dignity, self-esteem, morale, and amour propre, which is faith in yourself. So, would you say that these are qualities we absolutely need, or can we, let's say, is just something in addition that's, let's say, helps to boost us, or is it something essential?
Well, the topic being self-respect, that is more of a phrase or an expression which has been used to sort of paint a particular scenario. But what's the type of painting of this scenario or description of this particular scenario is static. Maybe one should look at it from a different perspective, which is basically, what should a personality do in order to show or to arouse some admiration for itself. That description or that definition or that scenario one just painted is dynamic. So, which is different from the static of, say, self-respect and the dictionary definition. Self-respect, strictly speaking, is more of a process. A process which is carried out by someone or by a personality. Because it is something which a personality does, it's more of something which is active, therefore alive, not static. That being the case, the question will then arise, what is the self? And what is this respect that is discussed? The self may be looked at or depicted in two different ways. What one sees outside is only a physical body which is utilized. In the first instance, one would not talk about self-respect when one is referring to animals or when one is referring to trees, to plants. That expression of self-respect only applies to human beings. And one must look, or one must examine very carefully what it means when it is said we apply that expression to human beings. The inner core that uses the physical body to experience is what is referred to as the self. Some others may say is the inner self. That inner core is always involved in some form of activity. That activity may be expressed externally through the mediation of the intellect, in which we have some external activity carried out. Whenever we have that this inner core or this inner man, whatever expression we care to call it, is involved in some activity which tends to help in the blossoming of its talents, which talents have been implanted in this inner core, then we have that process may be referred to as the uncovering of that which has been implanted or it is coming to maturity. Only then can one refer to the dignity of the inner core. Only when it has accomplished that, those talents, when it has allowed them or in the process of allowing them to come to fruition, only then can one mention one's dignity, because it is able to differentiate that which is noble, which ennobles itself and makes others to admire its activities, and also ennobles other people, or not only other people, even the environment. That is the working of the self. In that particular state, or in that particular scenario, one may now talk about self-respect, because it is involved in the unfolding, in the fulfillment of the inner talents which have been endowed to it. When it allows those things to come to fruition, then one may talk about self-respect, not self-conceit. Self referring to the inner man.
Oh, Gregory, we just lost your voice there. I think. Hello?
Hello, yes, I'm
Yes.
listening.
Yes, you just lost just a few words only, but I've heard everything pretty much, so you can carry on now.
Yes.
You were talking about self-conceit, and
I said not self-conceit.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Hello, can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yes, can hear loud and clear.
Yeah. It is that process that one had referred to, and the process of allowing the inner talents to be uncovered so as to express itself. And it's that process that make many people feel that they are striving in the right direction, and many others are able to appreciate, are able to gain from the activities of another. All these contribute to what is referred to as self-respect.
Thank you for that, Gregory. So you really, how can I say, showed a totally different angle to what I would say most people were thinking what this topic is about. And you started with this self. And so, in a way, I want to ask you next, really, how can we discover our abilities or our talents, which you say are implanted in us? You know, is there like sort of we grow as a child into an adult, and our parents sort of look after us and guide us, and so would you say, is it our parents sort of bring out our talents, or is it really this ourselves that the talents come out from? So how do we bring out these talents?
Again, that's a very pertinent question. Parents help to nurture that which they, to some extent, have recognized will be of help or of assistance to the child. But one must understand parents have their own limitations. They will help to nurture in accordance to their own education, in accordance to the limits which they themselves have acquired, depending on the amount of knowledge they have about the self. However, that is only a beginning. The personality must be allowed to move forth in order to discover for himself or herself that which he or she needs to do. Within every individual, there is always a longing for nobleness. One may not apply this to animals or, like we said, to plants, but this is only unique with the human species. And it is not tied basically to the physical body. These spring from the spirit. That which is spirit is the inner core of man, is that which activates the physical body. The covering, when the physical body has been put aside, in that state, we refer to that personality, that means the inner core, with the other coverings as the soul. This soul has other bodies within it, and in this are imprinted the experiences it has gathered along the line in its experiencing. But some things stand out. That which is of benefit to the human spirit is that which helps it to uncover and or beautify or to mature in accordance with the laws through which it, the human spirit, came into existence. These laws are simply the natural laws of creation. Deep within the human spirit are implanted gems, gems which need to be uncovered, or talents which need to come to fruition. But these talents must be nurtured from its infancy towards maturity. How each one is to discover this depends on the particular soul or the particular personality. The key to discovering them is first to understand the laws through which the human spirit, came into existence. Then gradually it will be led to the understanding of its purpose, why it has incarnated in these parts of creation in order to mature.
Thank you for that. You were mentioning earlier that the self is present for the human beings, but not for plants and animals. So, can you tell us what is there in the animals and what is there in the plants? If it's not the self, what is that? Is there something living in them?
As can be easily certified, plants only harbor, or they are just containers which have been set aglow, where some other beings may use them as places where they could stay for some time. They are static. They don't move from one place to the other as do animals. Animals, on the other hand, do move from one place to the other, but their core is not of spirit. Their core has taken off from out of a sphere below that of the human spirit, which may be referred to as the animistic. These can be verified through experience or from the work in the light of truth, the grail message, where things are supposed to be examined very rigorously and vigorously.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you, as Gregory's mentioned, to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And if you're interested to find out more or get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. That's one word, grailmessage.com. And the show for tonight, the topic of discussion for tonight is self-respect. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, just want to clarify a little bit more. We said about plants, animals, and us human beings, and you said the self exists in us human beings, but not in the animals and the plants. The plants, you said, because they are static, they don't have let's say, well, you didn't use that word, a living soul or spirit in that, but let's say that's what you're referring to. So there's nothing there to move those plants, but there are beings who can live, you know, around the plants, let's say, uh, which you could say around the radiation that comes from the plants. And then there's the animals who we know are mobile, and they don't have a spirit like we human beings do, but they do have. I know you didn't mention that word, but in regards to the animals, but let's say they have a soul, uh, but that soul is not like the human spirit. It's from another world, which is, let's say, we human beings become from a spiritual world, where this animal's origin of their being is or their soul, let's say, is from the animistic world, which is below the spiritual world. So just to be clear on one thing about the animals, so the animals do not have their own self personality. Is that what you're saying? And yet, when people have pets like dogs or cats, they do notice characteristics about these animals. So what is different in a way that they can't be considered to have a self, that unlike we human beings do?
What one stressed is that these animals, we cannot refer to them and saying they have self-respect. You cannot call a dog and expect self-respect from that dog or from a lion or from any other animal. It will behave in accordance to its own intrinsic limitations. Self-respect is only applied to human beings. Why can't you apply it to animals? Why can't you apply it to sharks? Why can't you apply it to whales? That already tells us that these expressions are being applied to the self, the inner cause. Since the inner core of the animal is lower, of a different species from that of the human spirit, we cannot use the same principle or the same expressions for the animals as we do to man, because the cause are different, the species are different.
Thank you for
They do have a mobile core, which mobile core enables them to move from one place to the other and to be able to defend themselves. It is true that some of them have developed some ways, some cunning, some ways in able to defend themselves and to accumulate food and things like that. However, we still have not heard that these animals are able to put together, construct some music in such a way that becomes so intelligible and are able to transmit this form of music to other animals. There could be researches, but the key thing here is that the inner core of the human spirit or the human being is different from the inner core of the animal. Therefore, there are different expectations. Of the human being, one may refer to things like self-respect of some ennoblement of the animal that is not expected of it.
Thank you for that. So, looking at the human being and looking at self respect, um, is self respect, I mean, is it like something to do with morality that, um, you know, doing, when we say doing something respectful or noble, like you've said, is there so a human being can differentiate uh, if something is good and bad, and so through because we said the self-respect comes from the activity of the human being. So, and you said and of course respect is always something you're looking for something good. I would say. So, is there something within the human being that can make it understand, make it know that this is something good is doing, and here something is doing not good or bad? Sort of like
The
a moral.
human spirit, from its inception, is able to determine that which is good or that which is not so good or not good at all. For by its nature is able to apply that which it wants to do to some others to itself, not to act in an arbitrary fashion. For it senses that others like himself are striving to develop their inner talents, and itself is also on the same path. It would not like to be obstructed or diverted, and its first lesson is to seek a way such that it will not divert another human spirit who, like him, is striving to develop its own talent. It doesn't need to go to school to know this. This is part of an intrinsic thing of the human spirit. The animals may not do that. An animal may find another, and if it is hungry and it thinks it's stronger, it may then overpower the other because it wants to assuage its hunger. The human spirit, unless it has degenerated to such a level where it's unable to differentiate that which is ignoble from that which is noble, that is the state where it behaves in such a bestial manner. Otherwise, a human spirit which is striving towards ennoblement will not seek to obstruct another who, like him or like her, is striving to do the same. So these qualities are very well known and recognizable in the human spirit. However, what has happened, many have pushed these qualities aside and seek to go lower by saying, I cannot differentiate that which is good from that which is bad. That is only an excuse which a sinking human spirit gives.
Now, I want to look at sort of a circumstances, let's say in a family situation, because so far what you've been saying is like everybody is an individual person, and each one has his own ability to discover its own ability and sort of discovers its ability, and basically, you know, almost it seems you from what you're saying they can work everything out themselves, and but we know that children, let's say you're born as a child and then you're brought up by your parents or guardian, and you learn from them a lot. They school you, or let's say they train you, and then you go to school, you learn a lot from your friends and teachers and so on. They influence you a lot. And although each person has his own personality, I will say all of these um, interactions play their part in how we develop and grow. So, are you saying that we can discover all this, let's say, our capabilities just by on our own, or is it there has to be the support from our parents and from the people around us to help us to go forward? And until we become adult, we can't really, let's say, in most cases that will apply. Uh, we are free really to develop ourselves.
At the beginning, when the human spirit incarnates in a physical body, the first task is to understand gradually how to use this physical body. Is able to first lie down, is able to develop the five senses gradually, then it sits before it starts walking, yet is still mastering the use of the physical body until it gets to the adolescent stage, where to a large extent it has mastered the use of the physical body and also the use of the language that it has been introduced to within the family and also within the environment. All this time it uses to make use of that which has been passed on to it, understand it very well, so it can move forward. Whatever knowledge has been passed on to it serves as a starting point, such that it can evaluate things accordingly. Along the line, there is the schooling of the brain, the schooling of the frontal brain, and the schooling of the back brain. What happens most of the time, a lot of emphasis is placed on the schooling of the frontal brain to the exclusion of the schooling of the back brain, through which the intuition flashes and comes. So we have a scenario in which for most persons we already have an overdevelopment of the frontal brain, because what one does not use vigorously and extensively, one tends to forget all the properties. So if man does not use his intuition very well, then we are likely to have a problem subsequently as it grows along. Whereas that which has been developed extensively, which is the frontal brain, is always in use, and therefore is much stronger. Had the back brain been developed in accordance with the laws of creation, then it would have grown in such a way that there would be seamless or near seamless communication between the inner core of man and the frontal brain. Then through this strong impression, is able to communicate with the wider universe, not only the physical universe, but also the non-physical universe, the animistic sphere, and also the spiritual sphere. That is what is expected that man should do. So, does it mean that each person should discover this himself or herself? To a large extent, yes. Because those that did the education did not have that intrinsic knowledge. And like you rightly know, you cannot give to someone that which you yourself do not know or do not have. In order to redress this sort of imbalance, we now have the work in the light of truth, the grail message, which shows like a map or like a picture map the structures which abound in creation, the structures which abound in life, the structures and the processes which abound, which could be utilized knowingly, such that one's experiences will be useful in the maturity of the human spirit. That is what it's all about. Maturity of the human spirit to return to its origin, where it had set off as an unconscious spirit gem. When it set out as an unconscious spirit gem, it did not have the human form. It was a spirit seed grain. In the process of development and maturity, it acquired this human form which is known to you and I. However, it not only needs to acquire the form, it needs to also become self-conscious. Self-conscious of its responsibility, what it needs to do and how it needs to do it. Self-conscious by cultivating those innate virtues which abound, which are also hammered in the structures, the dynamic structures and processes it has sensed within creation. This is what life is about.
Thank you for that, Gregory. What I'm hearing from what you're saying is that the real personality, the spirit, is the one that is meant to flourish and grow and sort of, if I can say, take control of this body that we wear on this earth and sort of direct it to growing and to all the activities that we do. And so it's from, things happen from within rather than from around us. You mentioned about schooling from the parents, schooling, let's say the education from the school as well. But the true flourishing or activity of the spirit, the real human being that is within us, comes from the spirit itself. So that's the one that should be driving everything forward. So that is where the grail message comes in, as you have said, to give that picture of who we are and how we are meant to be. So thank you for clarifying that. So the next aspect I want to look at is the respect, because the topic tonight is self-respect. And you've said it's not about, maybe I'm going to ask you to say more on that. Self-respect. The automatic, let's say, definition in my head would come is respecting yourself. And you said in the beginning of this program that this is about actually our activities. So when we talk about self-respect, is it the respect of our the respect is respecting of the respect coming from the activities that we do, um, because so we that is respecting ourselves. Is that what you're saying when you say you develop your activities, develop your abilities, then you're starting to respect yourself for that?
I think, or what one should say, one should give an example. Maybe that will clarify the scenario. Through the walk in the light of truth, the structures which had been placed in creation, or the order in creation, is such that between the man and the woman, they are engaged in different activities. The man is engaged in the coarse activities, the denser activities. The woman is engaged in the lighter or more intuitive activities. And their joint working is such that were they to cooperate in their working, then they are able to mature very quickly, which maturity will allow them to fulfill that which they need to do and return back home as self-conscious human spirit. Self, that referring to the inner core. In the fulfillment of this task or these activities, the woman lies or is a step or one step or half a step higher than that of the man, in which she is able to attract the radiations that streams from out of creation in faithfulness, in loyalty. These virtues, or those virtues which lie above, those virtues of faithfulness, those virtues of modesty, of humility, loveliness. In order to achieve this, she needs the protection because her activities are much lighter. She needs the protection of the man here on earth. That being the case, man then looks up to the woman in the fulfillment of her womanly dignity, in being able to protect and assist her to ensure that she fulfills her task. That gives the man the self-respect, the self-admiration that I have been of use to another human spirit who, like me, is striving to achieve the goal of self-recognition or self-maturity. So you can see how the word respect comes. The appreciation of the activities of others through your own activities in supporting them. That is the secret between the man and the woman. Whenever the man looks up to a womanly dignity, with the sense that she will fulfill hers in faithfulness, then man achieves his own self-respect. So self-respect has to do with the fulfillment of duties in conjunction with others. That means you must have carried out some activities in fulfillment in such a way that is of benefit or of assistance to others. Otherwise, where lies the self activity or the respect which comes out? Others need to appreciate, or others need to work in conjunction with you such that you are able to fulfill your task. Just as the woman is not alone in her standing, there are others that lie above her who are more delicate and support her. And you yourself, there are others who may lie below you who are also supporting you such that you are able to fulfill your task. And there are a myriad of them. But in the participation of these activities, the self-participation in these activities, it what brings the respect. If one may use a simple example, for many of those who in those days go to the farm, when you go to the farm and you work in groups and you help others in cutting the grass or doing some other thing, you earn that respect because they can see in you a helper, a supporter. That is how the self-respect comes in. The self this time because it comes from the inner personality. And the respect because it interacts with others and grants them support, grants them some protection in the fulfillment of their tasks.
Thank you for that. I think you have brought a much clearer and a broader picture that until this moment we really didn't have that sort of a idea. So, and just to understand that, is that only male and female working together that brings about the respect? I know it might sound a bit of a silly question, but is it the mutual working together of the male and the female that brings out the respect, or can it be just the male interacting with males? Just can that also result in respect that we are talking here?
One only gave an example of the work between the male and the female, but also there's also the work between a male and a male in supporting one another at the same level, not one that is on a higher level. You also have work within the same species, within the same level, and yet one has some skills which the others has not yet cultivated. As you have those complementary, but they both serve in the fulfillment at that same level. For instance, you look at even life on earth. There are some who are musicians. There are some, even within the orchestra, there are some who play the violin, some who play the trombone, there are some who play the drums. Yet, all these are complementary in order to deliver a particular piece of music. Or do we disrespect another person because he plays the organ while another who plays the violin is looked down upon? Wherever you have activities which complement in order to be of value or of greater value or of nobler value, then respect comes in. Respect comes in as long as you strive to fulfill the task or fulfill the duties which has been accorded due to those inner qualities which you strive to allow to come to fruition. That is the case of music. One can also look at many other spheres. In the home, there is the tasks which are assigned to the mother of a home and also the father of a home. In the families, the same thing happens everywhere. So respect is not tied to the man and the woman alone working together. Even your colleagues, the way you care to do your duty or to fulfill the task, and the support that you grant to these other ones is also a sign of the inner maturity. For you realize that in order to accomplish a particular task, many different angles are looked into. And when you strive to fulfill yours, others also strive to fulfill theirs. As football has become something so ubiquitous nowadays, you yourself can see that even in a football game, there is the goalkeeper, and there are those who play in the forward, there are defenders. Each one strives to do the best they can. And in the defense or in the goalkeeping or in the scoring of the goals, respect is earned for their combined activities helps to achieve the goal.
Thank you for that. Again, another expanding the picture of that um, concept of respect and working together. Um, in earlier you were talking about a female or woman being half a step higher than the man. In what way are you talking about? And isn't that are you saying that the women's abilities are stronger than the men? And um, so there's some, because in the world of today, especially with all this political correctness and equality and all sort of things like that, people will be quite puzzled that somebody can talk like that something is higher. At the end of the day, a woman is a human being and a man is a human being, and you treat each human being they might have more ability or not, but in the end you consider them equal in, let's say, in their worth or importance, maybe I should say. I don't know how to explain that. So is there something you are telling inherently stronger in a woman than the man? And if so, what is it? And how is it possible when we are the same species?
Well, it only suffices in the first instance to give an example. Through whom did the man incarnate, or do we incarnate? Is it through the man or through the woman?
Through the woman.
So that through which we all came into this world, is it inferior to us, or in all naturalness, is it more encompassing or superior to us that brought us into this world? Shouldn't we show respect for those tasks which the woman had to fulfill in order to permit us to incarnate here? I thought these should be self-explanatory and should be self-evident. But that may not suffice for many. But they should know the person or the personality through which we came into this world has taken or must have those intrinsic qualities to be able to attract the human soul that wishes to incarnate. Otherwise, that personality would not just incarnate because there will be no room. And therefore, that which acted as a center for the attraction for an incarnation must have finer qualities than we ourselves that have come as men. For in all naturalness, we lack that natural quality. That is why nature did not grant us that quality of attraction. It only comes through the woman. That should be a starting point for an investigation. But as usual, one will say, do not take one's word for it, but strive to examine this work in the light of truth, in all vigor, to find out or for more clarity and for more clarification.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Again, every um, as we talk on this topic further, you can see the subject keeps expanding and the conceptions get deeper. So I can almost see that, let's say some traditions, they say treat your mother with the most respect, and they in a way higher than the father, and you've given the demonstration there of the explanation behind why that could be and should be. Her task is quite a bit, let's say, no, I don't want to say nobler, but it's quite higher task, and so obviously the equivalent respect has to go with that. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Now there's something a little bit different I want to go into, where, because what you've been talking so far are, let's say, if the human being was striving to be the true human being they're meant to be, then this is what is supposed to be developing into self-respect, the examples you have given. But then on this earth, we have many, many examples of, let's say, where there are relationships where things are breaking down, or even there's abuse. So if I give one example, let's say there's a family, father, mother, and 2 children, let's say, and then the father beats up, let's say, the daughter, and then so much so that she's like mentally damaged. She loses her confidence, self-esteem, and then when she becomes an adult, this has had such a devastating effect on her that when she wants to, let's say, find a boy to be in a relationship with that boy, this is as an adult now I'm talking, but the effects of the abuse are so heavy that the person, let's say, seems to find another boy or another young man, who's also an abuser, basically, also may not be beating up so much, but maybe verbal and other type of abuse. Let's say similar character to her dad, and the cycle seems to continue. It's like a vicious circle, and and the person, this daughter, who's now adult, as I said already, she's lost her confidence, she's lost her self-worth. I know the word respect you have used it is in terms of activity, but here it's like you've been knocked down so much that you don't even think you can achieve anything like better than what's going on now. That's the world she's been living in, and she doesn't think there's anything better. Especially when there are people. Gregory, can you hear me? Gregory, are you there? Are you on mute? Hello, Gregory, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I'm on mute. I'm listening, so
Oh,
there
you
will
were
be no
listening.
noise coming in.
Okay, there was something I thought in the background, but anyway, you were listening. So I'm giving
Yes.
this. I don't know. Have you missed anything? What I've said so far? Have you missed any?
No, I've not missed
You haven't missed
anything.
anything. So basically, the point I'm trying to make here is when somebody is damaged or so badly abused, they've lost their confidence, they've lost their self-worth. We're talking about respect here, or self-respect, in terms of worthiness, of their own worthiness. They don't have any confidence to get out of even. They can't seem to want to leave the relationship. They're so abused they don't seem to have a way to use. And if even and I'm not the story I'm giving you is of a particular, let's say, a real story, without mentioning obviously any names or anything, but it could be taken in a general case of what does happen. You know, quite there are a lot of people that go through this situation. So what I'm saying is this is like a vicious circle, and how can that sort of person who is stuck in this circle get out of that circle by themselves? Because if I were to add, people advise the person doesn't, this daughter, let's say, who sort of know what is going on, but the daughter doesn't seem to be take any notice of that or really take it as a real help. Rather, they continue into the going back to the abuser. So they don't seem to learn that there's a way out. That's why I'm saying this is a vicious circle. So how can such a person? It's like if I were to put a weak spirit who doesn't have the capacity to release themselves, and in this situation, only you can rescue yourself, not somebody come and take you out there. Because if you go out there, you'll go. What seems to happen is they go back to the abuser again. So, how can such a person who seems to be stuck in this cycle of abuse, get themselves out of it?
That's a very pertinent question. And you find that there are many who, along the line, have tied themselves or have been tied to these cycles which are vicious. They are unable to, in quotes, break away. But everyone knows that unless there is mental indolence or some form of indolence, where there is a will, there is a way. When as a child you learn to walk, the first time you try to stand, you may fall, or the first time you take a first step, you may fall, but you try again until you yourself are able to overcome that particular challenge. Where the will is firm and resolute, a way will be found. As long as there is no mental incapacity, one should not underestimate the human spirit in its resourcefulness. Only when you have the scenario where the human spirit loves that indolence, where it does not want to exert itself, or where it has given up, there's no more will. Only there will it continue to endure or suffer such a vicious attack by, say, a father or a mother or whatever it may be. There are stories of some girls who had to sever themselves from their families, having gone through horrendous experiences, they had to plot a way to move from such a family. That is why one stress, where there is a will, there is a way. You may try the first time and may not succeed. But as we all know, through many songs, you can get it if you really want. But you have to try and try. It is the same thing with the human development. You have to try at several levels, again and again. Only when the human spirit is too indolent in accepting the status quo, be it what it has had from its parents in terms of religion, or in terms of science, or in terms of art. As long as the human spirit accepts without questioning, as long as the human spirit accepts without thorough examination, then it nestles itself in the concepts, which concepts may not allow it to take a further step. But as soon as the human spirit, deep within, strives to move away, of course there will be challenges, because it has been at rest all this while. It has accepted the status quo. But as soon as it strives to move away, and its striving is pure and is imbued with a cry for help, then that serves as a way where help will arrive for it spiritually and to a large extent physically. It only means he or she who dares to go forward courageously, believing or convinced in the help that if you make the effort, some form of help will come your way. It is such that he or she who dares will win. So it's a matter of indolence, not only of the spirit, but also of the intellect, but also of the physical body. For what the soul seeks, or seeks diligently, it will find. If the soul seeks that which is noble, diligently, nobleness will approach it. If, however, the soul seeks that which is ignoble with all its efforts, then it will find that there are many who harbor such qualities around it that will approach it so that it needs to experience. Through experiences, the soul is able to determine whether it's able to rise and feels that all those threads which hold it down are severed, or it sinks further. That's only happened through experiences. For only what the soul has experienced is of value to it, but it needs to exert itself deep within in order to make progress.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And just to add to that story, you and I can see this like in a quite objective way because it's not concerning us. Let's say this experience, but that person who, let's say, if we would like them to come out of that situation of being in an abusive situation, but that person themselves are let's say, do not see that situation like you and I see it as a abuse, let's say the painful abuse that it really is. They maybe see it only as a sort of a part of their life that you have to go through. This is how life is. That uh, because that's all they know or they seem to know. But I think when you emphasize the indolence, because they are not saying maybe, as I say, we are not able to obviously know the exact situation of each individual, what might be happening with them, but the word indolence does say there is has some level of indolence going on, because if the person had a clarity that, look, this is not acceptable, this is, I cannot be in such a situation, rather and I must do something about it, and until they come to a decision of I must get out of here, this situation, only then the help can come for them. So when I mentioned earlier about the vicious circle, that's the vicious circle, that you keep going back to the same, let's say, relationship, because you yourself haven't come to see that this can only be different if you make a decision to either to leave and just get out of it. Because in a way, at the end of the day, Gregory, we all can say we can only change ourselves, we can't change the other person. So if you want to change your life, you'd have to make a decision that I don't want this life, and in the end you have to be strong to leave that. So I don't know if you want to add anything further.
What one was discussing was not only the instance you mentioned, but it applies to all scenarios, particularly when you have someone or any person in a situation in which is forced to experience some of these things, and it needs to rise above that. Then, unless there is some inner movement, it's unable to break away from that particular scenario. So it's not tied to only abusive husbands or parents or whatever. Whatever scenario one has found oneself, the question one should ask oneself, not others, is what have I to learn from this particular scenario? And once you have learned the necessary lesson and the wish arises deep within to get out, that is the beginning of the end of that scenario. Because along the line, paths will be shown, paths which accord to the level of the efforts which one is willing to put in order to escape that cycle which one has called vicious. Vicious because one is unable to break away from it. But there is no cycle which is so tough that the human spirit, with a firm good volition, is unable to escape. Unless, however, that particular human soul has sunk so badly and has been caught within the tentacles of the darkness, because it itself embraces those ignoble qualities, and those ignoble qualities is unwilling to push away from itself, is unwilling to change. Like you rightly said, first be the change, and you will find where it will lead you. Unless one is the change into what you intend should be, the change in such a way that you only desire that which is noble, then The need arises that you have to strive after nobleness and not expect nobleness to come to you in your indolent state.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdul Shin. And the topic of discussion tonight is self-respect. You can join in the discussion by calling us on this UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, just to remind you, if you are interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, I've got some other questions, but they seem to be a bit mundane. But it's just like I'm just giving example of the situation that we see on this earth, commonly. So I will just ask them. For example, we have cold calling, people from trying to sell something, salesmen calling us. I'm talking mostly on the phone, and then they're obviously promoting a product, and then you could call it pressure sales tactics. They say, okay, do you want to buy this, or do you want to invest in this, or whatever it is, the product that they're selling. And then let's say you have some interest in that product, so you're willing to listen to them. And then the thing is, you want to go at your pace before you decide to buy or not buy. But they seem to have their own agenda that you need to buy now. And in order to achieve that, they will basically sort of, you could say, almost walk you through the steps that make you sign up and without actually taking your permission. In this, obviously, you have to give the information before you can sign up, but they just say, oh, go here, do this, and then you're thinking, wait a minute, I don't know if I really want to do this yet, and then they're just sort of cajoling you forward. And so with regards to self-respect, let's say in this business and sales industry, it's like the people who are the salesmen, they seem to sacrifice their own self-respect to just achieve a result. Almost that I think maybe they have a target to achieve and they've just got to find a way to get that sale. So my question on that is it possible, I mean, if I give a different example, when we go out, let's say we want to buy, say, shopping. I mean, shopping, everybody does shopping. Let's pick another example. Let's say you want to buy a car, because not everybody will want to buy a car. You yourself would spend the effort to do the research and go to the different places where they sell cars. And then it's like it's in your hand. But when it's the other way around, when someone who's the salesman trying to sell a product to you, it seems that the only way they can achieve that result, which is from I'm talking about the salesman point of view now, is through pressure. And then sort of, as I say, so Gregory, would you say the self-respect, can those people really be successful in having their self-respect, or without? How can I say? How can they be successful and keep their self-respect? Because it doesn't seem possible for them.
it is very important to clarify oneself what one needs to do with the life that it has to live here on earth, such that it needs to make firm decision in the sense that it must examine whatever comes across its path, whether it is the salesman that comes across its path, or it is religion that comes across its path, or whatever. One needs to examine it rigorously. For will a salesman sell you poison and you yourself not know that it is poison, and then you take it because the salesman wants to make money? If you yourself do not examine it, then the fault is yours. And this not only applies to buying and selling or salesmen, it applies to everything that we do. One must examine. That is why in the Walk in the Light of Truth, the first thing the author says, examine this work. He didn't say just take it. Examine it. In the sciences, you are taught to examine. In the arts, you are taught to criticize, a form of examination. But in this work, you are told to examine in accordance with the laws of creation through which you yourself came into being. For only in the process of examination do you then exert yourself, all the senses, to look at the different sides and then make a decision. If, on the other hand, you take something hook, line, and sinker, and only to find out it contains poison, then the fault is yours, not the other person who, in order to make money, sells something to you, and you yourself are too indolent to check it out. No one, even an animal, will go to a cliff and see the depth of the cliff and decide to jump. Even an animal, particularly even goats or sheep, they will hold back because they sense the depth. So the human spirit is granted that ability to examine. If it refuses to use those abilities, then the fault is his, not the tempters who wish to make a fortune for themselves.
Thank you for that, Gregory. It really helps to, like you said, this answer you gave is not only about buying and selling, but it's actually everything that we deal with in life. So thank you for answering that. Now, another point, again, this looks a bit mundane, but I feel because these are things that happen in the world that we live in, we should just have it, talk about it. So the other thing we have, money. Money is considered to be highly valued in this world. Obviously, we know money isn't everything, but it does have a high value, at least amongst the human beings on the earth. So, and obviously, we are, here you hear about famous people, or people become famous as musicians or actors or sports people, and they obviously earn a lot through that becoming famous. And yet, at the same time, there's also other people, as you mentioned, in science, and it could be people making inventions, it could be people doing research and finding cures or therapies. They don't achieve that same level of fame or respect or money. So, is that um, like is that let's say a fault of the? I mean, it's just the world we live in that that's what human beings value more. It seems like we value something, let's say, more superficial things more highly than the things which are more contributing. I'm not saying people who sing are not necessarily as contributing as the, let's say, somebody who produces an invention or makes a cure, but in a way the cure has more, if you would say, more benefit than a musician, you could say. Yes, they make lovely song, but I would say so what um, yeah, would that be that because we don't value the, we don't give respect and money in a way to things that are truly more, let's say, they're contributing more to this world, and we are somehow superficial.
To a large extent, I think superficiality comes in. A simple example would be that of the physical body. The physical body which we use, which one refer to as my body, many a time enough effort is not granted to the physical body to make sure it functions efficiently. That means we are superficial about the necessary exercise, the necessary nutrients to ensure everything goes on well. It means we do not value it as such. Only when it impairs our ability to move from one place to the other or to carry out our normal functionalities, only then do we pay attention to it, which only means that we never valued it accordingly. And yet the physical body happens to be one of the best tools or one of the most important tools that we need to use in our experiencing on earth. Even if one has all the gold and silver and so-called money in the world, if the physical body is not sound, those things, whatever they care to call them, money, gold and silver, are completely useless. And many a person will gladly give all that they have in terms of gold and silver and money to ensure they have their health back the way it's supposed to be. So one will call or classify these human behaviors as that of indolence or superficiality. Superficiality arising from indolence because it hasn't examined deeply enough in order to value that which has been granted to it. So that is the root of many of these problems. The same thing happens with the knowledge which we claim to hold. Again, indolence sets in because we do not examine deep enough to understand or to value. You can only value value something when you have examined it very deeply and find out how useful it is to you or to your surrounding. If you ignore it and don't use it appropriately or use it in accordance or accordingly, then you ignore it, and the consequences will be that when you now want to carry out some other functionality, you wouldn't know what to do. You wouldn't even ascertain that some of the things that you have around you could be of great value, or it could start as a stepping stone in order to achieve that which you need to do. So it's always the case that whatever has been presented to man, be it the physical body, or whatever skills they have are not valued appropriately by the person who has control over that particular functionality. That has always been a big problem. And therefore, you find that in many cases, only when that functionality is impaired, then you turn around to start valuing it. Only when you find you cannot walk, maybe you have some injury, then you start worrying about, oh, I need to work to do this. I need to do this. Only then do you want to, start exerting yourself or to relearn to walk. So as with these little things, in most things, that's how it is. Man has got to learn to value that which it has been granted. First of all is the physical body, the tool it uses in experiencing. All others are secondary.
Thank you again, Gregory, for sort of pointing to the crux of the matter, and rather than, let's say, where many of us are stuck in the superficial sort of mass on the superficial level of thinking. So you really have to examine. That's the only approach to come to getting answers in our life and understanding this life. So thank you for really, how can I say, pointing that out. Now, another thing that you see a lot in the world today is they say believe in yourself. Then you will believe in your ability, believe in everything that you can get this whatever goal that you're aiming for to achieve for yourself. Believe in yourself. And so what I would ask is that really the way to success, that you believe in yourself? It seems a bit egotistic when you look at it, that, oh, I can do this everything myself. Because when you look at the world, you're not the only person here, and to achieve anything, you're going to have to interact with other human beings. So yes, you might have a dream or a vision, but how are you going to achieve it? Let's say just by believing in yourself, it seems a bit weird. And yet that is what everybody is sort of told, that look, believe in it and you will get there. So is that really true, that just belief in yourself is insufficient to achieve your goal?
To believe without working on yourself is indolence, is mental indolence. Belief is only the first part. But to examine your belief, whether it's the right thing, that's another matter in itself. So, but generally to believe in yourself is to assert that you can do it. How far you can go, one cannot ascertain. But it's a first step. It doesn't mean you are able to do the whole thing. There are some who will want to embark on a journey. And as with everything, whatever you wish to embark on, you prepare for it. There is what is referred to as preparation. In the process of preparation, you are able, as much as possible, to acquire as much knowledge. It doesn't mean because you say believe in yourself, you will not ask questions. It doesn't mean because you have to believe in yourself, you will not, make use of the tools which are available. It only means that you yourself must make the effort. And in making the effort, believe becomes conviction because you have put in the effort. So it is for this reason that the author of the Walk in the Light of Truth, in the first writing, said, belief becomes conviction. That belief becoming conviction, the belief has to arise from the inner man, which is the self. Maybe that is the root of believe in yourself. But it's only a start. But belief has to be translated in a process, which process leads to the reality or to the realization. That process in which the spirit, in exerting itself to this realization, in accordance with the laws of creation, that process strengthens the spirit. It becomes mature. And once the spirit is convinced in its experiencing, then it becomes humble. It now knows that it needs to exert itself, and that belief is not sufficient, but could be necessary, could start or could become the starting point to conviction, in the sense that it must exert itself, or it must exert all those abilities which lie dormant within it. The belief is a sensing that there are these innate abilities that lie within it. The conviction is ensuring that these innate abilities are put to use.
Thank you for that, Gregory, again. Got a different point now. We, everybody wants naturally to be respected, and because when they're respected, it encourages people to flourish. So, does this mean we should only focus on positive things? I'm talking about communication between, your, let's say, somebody in your family or somebody in your circle, let's say, right? Does it mean we should only focus on saying positive things about the person and not point out any weak or negative points? And if we do want to point out some negative points or weak points without being disrespectful, should we be able to speak straight, or should we be using diplomatic words to hint to the person, or maybe even we should just make some joke that the person gets the point that you're trying to make? So, yeah. So, can we speak? Should we only be when we say showing respect? Is it she should only focus on positive things? That's the first one.
Well, whatever needs to be spoken, such speeches should come from the heart. And for one who is sensitive, one is able to differentiate speeches or jokes or whatever that comes from the heart from jokes which tend to mock the inabilities of another. So most of these things depends on who is dishing it out and those who are receiving it. It doesn't mean one should not speak honestly. There are many who, when spoken to, at that particular moment, do not like it, do not cherish it. But along the line, in quiet reflection, they will come to appreciate what had been mentioned initially. Many others are there who are able to put these things in a light form or in jokes, so-called, and others are able to pick it. When it comes to diplomacy, unfortunately and very sadly, many others use diplomacy to extract information or to cheat the other person, not to be of assistance or to be of help to the other person. Which, if those things were used at them by some others who is not in that position, they themselves will reject. So it all depends. Whatever comes from the heart, most of the time is always genuine. So it is good first to understand a scenario, the surrounding. Try or strive to understand the surrounding before one speaks. There are many a time some may not need to say anything because the surroundings or the scenario where they are does not permit such because of the rules of engagement in that particular society. But each human spirit should be able to judge and first take care of self, an act of self-preservation before it goes to try to correct another fellow human spirit.
Thank you for that, Gregory. We talked earlier about famous people or people, have, well, basically showing respect through money, fame, and so on. And now, obviously, and when you, let's say, become famous, you want, or known for a certain reputation, you want to retain that reputation, and then somehow you, let's say, start behaving, not, let's say, in a natural way, but just the way to maintain the reputation. And or let's say you have a fear, you want to stay famous, let's say like that, and then you will do things for that purpose. And so my question really there is, how can one keep maintaining their self-respect? How is it? I don't want to sort of put words in your mouth, but yeah, how do you keep maintaining once you've, let's say, achieved some reputation of respect, and like you become famous? How do you keep it without, let's say, messing it up? I guess I don't know how other way to put it.
But one should know that many things about self-respect could be that the personality remains silent, even in the face of all sort of hostility. The personality remains silent and is able to articulate his silence or unsilence in such a way that many in that scenario will understand. It doesn't have to do with famous or unfamous people. Wherever one is, most of the time it is what is seen physically that is discussed. Man's life on earth is not only physical. There are the thoughts which are unseen by many due to their own limitations. There are the thoughts in the frontal brain. There are the intuitive thoughts. All this help to weave an environment about the personality that one sees. And this environment is able to attract or repulse many a thought or similar environment to it. The first thing is to build a strong and pure environment about oneself. and strive to maintain it, and only give voice to something when and if and how it will be necessary. As long as one is always reticent, is always very reflective in one's demeanor, then you maintain your self-respect because you don't give out too little or too much, because you are able to judge the environment and able to give out only that which is of benefit in that particular scenario, not giving too much which cannot be digested, such that people will be flabbergasted at the knowledge which you have, or giving too little, in which many seek out for more. That person that strives to respect himself or herself must be able to make the judgment or the sensing of that which it needs to give out at a particular moment. It doesn't mean that he is such a super person, but he is able to sense true helpers, which helpers surrounds him and jolts him through his conscience that which he needs to do in order to achieve that which is of value. Only in such a way, in cooperation with others who are unseen, in cooperation with others who are around him, which those around him that he can see, and also through experience is he able to make that decision. Then he earns respect for the inner man, which is the self.
Thank you, Gregory. We've pretty much come to the end of our show, and I just thought I will read uh, the forward to the Grail message for the listeners. We do that occasionally, and I think you've mentioned a little bit in our discussion tonight. So I thought I'll just read that out for our listeners. So, dear listeners, this is the forward to the Grail message, and it's titled "For Your Guidance." The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I am addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and the prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See, that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God, Abrushin. Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
We wish them well, and we do hope that before long they will pluck up the courage to examine this work by themselves.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Yes, listeners, I obviously second that. And just to remind you, you can go to this website if you want to get a copy of the Grail message or get some information, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And of course, we'll be back next week on Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the topic, we actually know it now, it'll be compassion. So please do join us if you can. And I wish you all a great week. God bless. And Brother Sayom, I believe, is in the house. So he'll be starting his show any moment now. All the best, everyone. Take care.